And welcome to Chisme is Life, an opportunity for us as Latinos, Latinas, Latinx, immigrants, migrants, and individuals from mixed status families to have a therapeutic space for conversations for members of the Latinx immigrant community. My name is Rafael Vasquez Guzman, and we are going to be having a wonderful discussion today. This is part of a series. We're going to start with 10 episodes, and today's episode is called Crossing Borders, Carrying Stories. The idea is we want to understand the emotional baggage of migration, the emotional experiences during migration and settling, and the loss, the adaptation, and the hope. And the fact that many of us, no matter how much English or how well we learn English and we understand the culture of the US, because our skin tone is different, we will never be accepted. So welcome once again to Chisme is Life. And today we have our guest who is a therapist. Her name is Jessica Luesa. And we are going to have a healthy conversation about all of these experiences. And we want to begin clearly by saying that this may not be your unique experience because we all experience life differently. Jessica, welcome to the show. Thank you for accepting the invitation to be the first guest at Chisme is Life.
Thank you for having me, Rafael. I'm really excited for this new podcast because, like you said, right, we're here to talk about different unique experiences and to really hone in on our own culture, right? And I'm glad that we have this space to be able to provide it for those people that want to join our conversation as well, right? And just, I think the biggest thing for me is that everybody gives an opportunity to listen to a different perspective, right? Because, like you said, maybe not everybody's going to resonate or not everybody's going to agree, and that's okay. But this is really an opportunity for you to be able to listen to us, just see where we're coming from, and just go from there. Formulate your own opinions because it's really important to listen to different perspectives, right? And we can do this through healing through the chisme.
For a long, long time, people have talked or spoken about chismosas and chismosos as if it is a truly negative piece. But when we talk about chisme, we have to think back about our ancestors and how we would go to the river to wash our clothes. And while we were washing clothes, people were talking with each other about, well, how's the family doing? How are the children doing? And then we would sit there while the laundry was um, on the bushes or the grass and it's drying up. And again, it was an opportunity to chismear, to talk, to discuss. And so it's also important to have conversations for people who have been excluded altogether, right? We often talk about mental health for children, mental health for elderly people or older individuals or immigrants that migrated here as adults, but we rarely have conversations with and about people who maybe migrated as children or the children of immigrants. So we'll talk on other episodes about vicarious trauma and other pieces. But today we want to talk about the transition. And part of it is, why did many of us even have to migrate? And how traumatic that decision is. Because many of us as children didn't even choose to do so. We were not necessarily aware. How many individuals that I've worked with who were told, we're going to go to Disneyland. And 20 years later, they still haven't gone to Disneyland, right? But that's how they told them that they were going to go to a different land. And so you have direct contact as well with people who have migrated, and you are a child of immigrants. And so what a perfect combination for us to get started. So again, when we talk about crossing borders, and caring stories, what is something that comes for you, that comes up for you, and so that we can really get into these important pieces?
The biggest thing that I would say that comes up is really not really thinking about the what's going to happen as a result of that choice, right? People think that, oh, it's just them coming over and then they're here, they're going to get a new job and just fit in. But that's not the reality.
Mhm.
The reality is that that experience on its own, having to come over here, however you came over here, that's an extremely traumatic experience because people go without food, without water, without a roof, and they have to figure it out and survive that first, even before they get here, right? And on top of that, carrying that guilt that they had to leave somebody behind.
Yeah.
And so once they're here, they don't know what to do with themselves because they're here, but now everything's seeping out, that whole experience. And so that's the biggest thing that I've heard, that the shock that comes with that, because it's really not what people expect. I think I remember hearing even from family members, right? Well, you're in el norte, right? The north. And you're having a better life and you have all this money, but the reality is that that's not how it works. It's really an assumption based on what's been put out there through movies and just other people, but it's not like that at all, right? And so as a result of that, the people that do come over here, they don't know what to do. They do find work. They're here to find a better life, but they really dismiss the trauma that they just experienced. And so then that seeps out in other relationships, in themselves, and how they feel about themselves, and the struggle that adds on to even trying to find that job or going to school or anything else.
Definitely. And the fact that, and there's a documentary in Spanish that is called Los que se quedan, right? Because a lot of the time, again, the research and the conversations are about the immigrant community, the refugee community, but rarely do we talk about moms and dads and grandmas and what is left behind that includes the cultural values, beliefs, norms, religion, food, and everything else that you left behind. And how, as an immigrant or refugee, in order to even be able to get out of bed every morning, you have to shut down all those emotions and all those memories so that you can function. But as you clearly stated, it makes it very hard, almost impossible, when that is so much part of you and your culture and your identity. And now you are being told that you have to function in a different world where, again, the culture, the values, the beliefs, the norms, the language is completely different. And you are expected to go from one day being in one space to the next day being in a whole different space. And now you have to function here. And if you don't have any contacts, anybody from your community that lives here and is going to support you, you have to figure it out on your own. And the level of trauma that results, right? The experiences, the negative experiences, and how that affects you long term.
Absolutely. It's we see it in the work that we do. We work with different people, youth, um, elders, just everybody. And when they share their story, I think the saddest part for me is how normalized they've made it, because they tell me with just a flat affect, like nothing. And I'm just listening, impacted, but what they've experienced. But like you said, right, they've learned to shut that down in order so that they can function, right? They're in survival mode. And that's the hardest part to really work with, because then there's that fear of, if I open up, then what am I going to do with what comes out? And that's where We really, really have to take it slow, right? It's possible to heal. It's possible to share your story, and it's really, really important to do so
Yeah.
because that's part of the struggle, right? Just healing as well.
One of the things that always comes to mind for me from my personal story as a refugee coming to this country is, who do I trust to even speak about my emotions, my feelings, sadness, and successes? Hey, I just got a job. Who do you trust? If you don't have anybody here, who do you talk with? If you happen to be undocumented, same thing. Who can you trust? When working with DACA recipients years ago, 2013, maybe 14, I had this family that walked in the room so that we would do their paperwork. And this lady came in with her son. They were about 15, 16, the child. And I welcomed them into the room and I said, please sit down. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes. And it was sad because as they walked towards the back of the room, these two boys saw each other, they ran towards each other, they embraced and they cried, and so did the parents. These two boys had been best friends all their lives. They both arrived to this country at the age of 1 or 2. And the only secret, they were best friends, but the only secret they had kept from each other was that they were both undocumented. Right? And so, who do you trust? And how not being able to have trustworthy individuals in your life causes so much pain, right? So it's important to recognize that, because again, in your work working with many clients, and in my work of 30 years also working with migrant and refugee community members, we have heard these stories, right? And I think it's a blessing, at least for me, to have people that trust me with their stories. And if that's going to create a form of healing for them, come and tell me, right? And that has been the piece. And as a therapist yourself, that's the thing that you do. People come and trust you with painful experiences, but also moments of celebration.
Definitely. And even with that, right? Like you said, our level of education, it does allow us to do this, right? And at least for me, I can say that that was always my goal, to just be able to give back to the community, because how do I function without doing so? We all are supposed to heal together. And I think that's the most important piece for me. And being able to be that shoulder for them to lean on is really a privilege. Because, like you said, I do see all of that, all of the resistance. I think that's the best word I can think of. The resistance in even, like, what am I doing here? What do I do? Can I really trust you? And what I make clear to all my clients is that that's my job. My job is to make it so that you can trust me. So you tell me as much as you feel comfortable with, and we'll work with that. And it's really such a beautiful experience to see them slowly opening up. And you can see the healing happening right in front of me. And that's what I would hope for all of our community, so that they can give themselves an opportunity to heal and know that there are people like us that really are here for the right reasons and are not just here for a job or, for status or anything like that. No. There's genuine people that really are here to provide that support so that you feel like you can show up as you are and you're never going to be judged.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that, again, we come from ancestral communities where I would say that's the key word, community, We all succeed together, or we all, for lack of a better word, fail together. But part of migration, unfortunately, it's about that isolation, right? And I've talked about this many times before, where sometimes you may be living in an apartment complex and there might be 50 different families, and they all may be from the same country, but they don't talk to each other. They don't say good morning, they don't associate, because again, we have been told that we are not supposed to trust other people, right? Ancestrally, we are told, again, collaboration equals success. If somebody's hurting, we're all hurting. If somebody's healing, we're all healing. That goes back to a question that I posed to last week in a conversation. What makes your community ill, right? But then how do you contribute to the healing of that community? And so some people will be teachers and other people will be, in different positions within that community. And we must come together, because immigrants, migrants, refugees are often suffering in silence because of that lack of trust, because they have heard stories of other people being taken advantage. Because before you even begin the journey, sometimes they say, make sure not to just trust anyone. And so in your position as a therapist, it's wonderful for you to be able to welcome people and say, this is a safe space. And as you said, I don't expect you. And that has been my approach all my years of service, of community service. My work has been, I'm not going to force you to tell me stuff that you're not ready to tell me. I'm here to listen. And hopefully, over a period of time, I will gain your trust enough for you to tell me about that other stuff, right? The stuff you keep underneath, the stuff that you don't share with other people. And so here is the invitation to the community to please stop living in isolation, to please stop living in a way that you don't trust anybody. And to also, I would say, no longer believe, as I've always said, we are born to a certain family biologically, but sometimes that may not be the healthiest group of people to be with, and therefore it's okay to be different and to reach out for help. Because some people will say, no, we don't go to therapists. No, we don't speak about our family trauma. No, we don't share that stuff. And we are here to tell you that is wrong, right? And speaking about your pain and your trauma, your negative experiences in a healthy setting like therapy is the best solution. Because when you tell the story the first time, you may cry, and that's perfectly fine. But what you will notice over time is that by speaking and telling your story for a while, eventually it doesn't have the same emotions that it once had. It will not trigger you in the same way it did the first time around, and that is called healing. But a lot of us, Robert Blythe used to say, children jump around on couches and everywhere all the time when they are children, because for the most part, they haven't experienced, we hope they haven't experienced trauma. But an 18-year-old today will walk around looking at the ground, right? Avoiding everybody. And imagine that they have a huge pillowcase of different traumatic experiences, such as migration, right? And so we need to let them know that it's okay to open up with people that they trust and they have developed this healthy relationship with, not just anybody, but finding people like yourself, therapists, to be able to undo that damage, right? In the survey that we conducted last year and the year before with high school students, it said that about 55% of them do not trust their high school counselor. 50% of them do not trust their teachers. But what's more painful than that is the 15% or so that have absolutely nobody in their lives that they trust. Not family, nobody at work, nobody at school, no best friends that they trust with certain things. And therefore, they keep carrying them, and that again can lead to self harm. So I'm happy for the work that you do, because you get to educate people about healing. And perhaps you can tell us about some of the work that you do. And then, right, we always need to talk about tools that people can use for success.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that comes up for me first is that as we've been talking about this, everybody's experience is absolutely unique. And so the reality is that, yes, I can understand to an extent, right? I might not know firsthand what you went through. And I mention this because that's also a big part of why people don't open up, because they think that, oh, well, why should I if nobody knows what I'm going through, right? But that's not the point. The point is for you to give yourself an opportunity to let it out, right? So that you don't have to carry it by yourself. Yes, maybe I don't understand, and I won't ever understand, but I can sit here with you so that you don't have to be alone. And I can provide you with the tools that are necessary for you so that you can be able to function day to day.
Mhm.
And that's the most important piece. Just give yourself an opportunity to heal and to talk about your experience. Because at the end of the day, you never know who you're helping too. There are other people that can really resonate with your own experience, and it's just really about you taking that first step, right? And again, it's not all on one person. It's all of us coming together to share our stories, to share our hurt, our traumas, right? But to also share our gifts, because in doing so, we allow others to show up for us, right? We allow for that connection to happen. And the more connected we are, the more we'll heal. It's that old saying, right? It takes a village. It really does. But in order to have that village, we have to allow ourselves to open up first.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and with that, right? Like there's different types of tools that we utilize, right? I think the biggest one, or I want to preface this by saying that it's odd to some people to do meditation, to do breath work, to do tapping, right? And because they think it doesn't work, right? Or they what is it, like the woo-woo stuff?
Mhm.
But the reality is that this is stuff that actually works, right? Or simply by going outside and getting some sun. Think about that. Think about a day where you've been stuck inside all day and you feel really fatigued. And all of a sudden you need to go outside for something from your car. But the shift that happens in that moment, it can be a 10-second moment and you feel so much better. But that's the power of nature, right? That's the power of these other tools that we try to teach everybody, because they do work, and they only seem like they don't work because we've never tried them.
Mhm.
Right? We really shut ourselves out in trying new things, but that's because there's fear involved. And it's okay to be scared, but don't let fear get in the way of your healing. You use it. You use it to move forward. You use it to do the thing that you've always wanted to do. Because at the end of the day, if you don't, the only thing you'll have is regret. And I think that's worse. So really giving yourself an opportunity to take that next step, even if it seems scary.
Mhm.
Because you'll be opening doors for yourself. That's you healing by trying new experiences. That's part of the healing. And you'll see more doors open up for you. You'll see yourself feeling better. And before you know it, it's like, oh, I guess I haven't thought about that in a while, or I don't feel my heart racing all the time. And that's the beauty of this, right? But it does require you to just try it, right? Just once, just slowly. It doesn't have to be done every day. Do it when you remember first, and then start incorporating it every day, right? And the way that we teach things, and this is what I do always tell my clients, is that I teach everybody very, very by the book, but they choose to decide how to incorporate it into their life in a way that works for them. And then I allow them to bring it back in case they're having any issues or struggling on how to navigate that. But I think that's the biggest thing, just giving that opportunity to try the thing, right? Whatever it is. Because maybe that's the thing you're going to love in the future, right? You're going to love to meditate because it quiets your mind, right? The breath work, it allows your body to relax. Because the other piece is that as much as, you think that it doesn't impact you, it does. It does in how you show up with others, how you take it out on others. Maybe somebody is irritating you and you start yelling at them. Some people even take it as far as physical violence. And that's the trauma. So you can't say there's nothing wrong with me when you're here yelling at me, or you're over there trying to fight somebody else. You're not healed. You have a lot to work through, and that's okay. That's not a judgment. But at the same time, we cannot take it out on anybody else. We have to really take accountability and learn to do so. Accountability is really, really hard. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It means that you acknowledge that you may have hurt somebody or caused some type of harm, but that you're willing to do better and work on it. It's not just you saying sorry. It's sorry, and this is what I'm going to do to fix it. And these are the tools that we teach. Really, really providing the psychoeducation so that before we even start, that they understand the why.
Yeah, in episode 2 of this series, we're going to be talking about trauma in a little bit more detail so that people understand. Because a lot of the time, especially members of the Latinx community, when we give them the ACE test or a version of the ACE test, which is the assessment of trauma in childhood prior to the age of 18, a lot of people negate, right? Oh, yes, my parents hit me, but I was a bad child. Okay, that's not what the question is asking, right? So we'll talk more about that assessment. How do you take it? If it triggers you, what are resources in the community? But starting now, again, it's about developing the skill of meditation, but also, as you clearly said, raising your hand and asking for support. Choosing that where you are is not where you want to be emotionally, mentally, but also recognizing that we all can continue to improve. And as you clearly said, there's going to be fear, right? But if you had to migrate to this country, fear was a factor that you had to overcome. What if I don't make it? What if when I get there, I cannot get a job? What if, right? And all those what if had to be put aside for you to be here today. And so being uncomfortable, being nervous, and looking for change, benefit, that is normal. But you clearly said, recognize it, welcome it, right? Welcome that fear, right? There's this beautiful book by Thich Nhat Hanh called Fear. And it talks about that. There's a Spanish version of it for your parents. If you want to share it in Spanish with your parents, it's called Miedo. And it talks about that. It says that we as human beings are afraid to grow old, we're afraid of getting sick, and we're afraid of dying. And as a result of that, many of us never truly live because we are living with fear all the time. And so the work that you do, Jessica, is essential because you teach people to normalize some of these things like fear so that we can improve and we can heal. Because many of our ancestral cultures function from a 7-generation rule. What we do today, how is it going to impact the next 7 generations? Well, if you were physically, emotionally, or in other forms abused as a child, what are you willing to do today to make sure that you do not pass any of that trauma to your children and to your children, children, so on and so forth, right? And this is why we focus on healing. And this is why meditation is so important. And people say all the time to me, well, I don't know how to meditate. As soon as I start focusing and thinking that I'm going to be in the moment, my thoughts go here and there and everywhere. And for those individuals who are religious, like Catholic, for example, I told them, start with prayer. And prayer, if you do it correctly, and I'm not here to promote any religion, but prayer, if you do it correctly, puts you in a different mood. You forget about the bills that you have to pay, and you forget about this, that, and the other. And if you shift some of that, eventually you can do meditation, right? And the great Thich Nhat Hanh, when he was being interviewed by Oprah one time, there's a video of this, and she asked, well, when do you meditate? She's doing this 1 hour, hour and a half interview. And he says, I'm meditating while I am here with you, right? And if we learn to do it properly, and we can master it at that level, which for him, it took him like 40 years, we can avoid that anger. We can avoid that frustration. We can avoid a lot of other unnecessary emotions during our daily lives. And so therapists like yourself can teach people how to do this, right? And that is essential. And maybe in a few minutes, as we move towards the end of this, maybe you can give us some form of a guided meditation, breathing exercise for a couple of minutes so that people can then practice it at home.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can definitely do that. And, it's again, right, just take that first step because it works, right? Just kind of like our ancestors when we gather around and we talk about our experiences, our childhood, right? That's very healing too.
Mhm.
And this is another form of that. And so the more you hone in on this, right? Like you said, you'll be able to navigate day-to-day life a lot better, right? And those other emotions, they'll still pop up, but it's going to be less because they also serve a purpose, right? They're there to really tell us like, hey, something's going on with you right now. Are you being triggered? Are you being made to feel sad, angry, and all of that, right? It's the best example that I can put is like a car, right? When a light goes off in your car, it means that it needs some type of maintenance, and you're the car. Those lights are your emotions. And what do you do with the car? You take it to a mechanic to have it looked at. And so what can you do? You come to us, and we can help you. right? It's therapy is so taboo. It's been given just this negative reputation. And the reality is that, yes, there are bad therapists. We have to acknowledge that. There's people that are not trauma informed, they're very ignorant, that they don't know how to work with the culture. And yes, you might not click with your first therapist, but it doesn't mean that you have to give up, right? There are other people. Be okay with leaving, right? If you want to let them know, like, hey, this is what didn't work out for me. And you will find a therapist, right? Because they will align with you. You'll feel safe. You'll know very soon, right? And the reason I tell you that is because I've had my own clients, right? They tell me. One of them walked in, and it was after maybe session 10, right? Where we started kind of reflecting on how they showed up here. And they said, the first time I saw you, I knew that I was going to be okay. And that's beautiful to hear, right? Because you do know it's a feeling that you get. And then again, you see the healing happen. You see people showing up for the first, 2, 3 months, and their affect is really down, depressed. They can't make eye contact. They just seem really sad. They find all the negative and everything. And then one day that changes. One day they're smiling and they're happy to be there. And that they look forward to it, anything else I've heard, right? That they're like, of everything that I have to do this week, I know that this is the hour that I never want to miss. And all it took was for them to show up. And I laid down the groundwork so that they could feel that way. Because that's what your therapist is supposed to do.
Yep.
Your therapist is supposed to create that space for you to feel safe to share. And if they don't, and if they're making you feel like you have to teach them, then you find another therapist. But do not give up, right? It's similar to, the better way I can put it is, when you're trying new food, you're not going to like all the food, and that's okay. But you keep trying different things to expand your palate, to learn, and then you find the food that's for you. Yeah. Right? And so that's how you carry this, because again, the only person that stands in your way is you. And that's the part that's harder for a lot of people, to really, really take that accountability of their own role, of their own suffering. Yeah. But there are good people out there. Just give it an opportunity.
Absolutely. There's, as you said, there are the good therapists, there are the healthy therapists, there's the therapists who went through the master's program, for example, and understood that that was all there was to it. And then there are therapists who are recognized that whatever their master's program taught them is not enough, and will go to this training and that training on their own time to be able to increase that knowledge. My recommendation always to people is, if by the end of the second session you don't feel connected in a way to your therapist, like you are being heard, like you are being understood, as you said, thank them and go somewhere else, right? And then two, the other piece that I think is important here is just that, again, your therapist is not your friend, right? Your therapist is there to push you along, listen, but push you along towards, hey, we need to address this issue and that issue and this issue, and what priority do we make these things? And that's their job. If you're showing up and the only thing that they care about is like, tell me about your things for this week, but there's no real movement towards healing, also thank them and go somewhere else. And one other thing before you, again, do some form of guided meditation here, what's important is that in the Latinx community, in the immigrant community, a lot of the time people are like, no, I'm never going to therapy. Therapy doesn't work. But it's interesting to see that families gather, and sometimes you have the parents sitting over there, especially males. They drink, they start crying, they tell all their trauma, they do what we call trauma dumping. And that is when it's socially acceptable to cry as men, to talk about our problems. And then the next day, everybody pretends that that conversation never happened because we're not supposed to be weak. And that's my message to men specifically. You don't have to have that excuse to speak about your issues, right? It's even more powerful when you do it while you're sober. And so maybe you can take us through a little bit of a guided meditation so that people can start understanding the benefits of it. And as a result of that, they can practice and hopefully they'll come back to our second episode a little bit better prepared when we talk about trauma, what is trauma, and the consequences of trauma.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So the meditation that comes to mind for me at the moment is one where it allows you to show up for whatever it is that you're going to do, right? So if you're about to step into a big meeting, right? Or you're going to have a big day at work, you do this beforehand so that you can actually be present. And so this does take a few minutes, but it is worth it. So, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and guide you, and Mr. Vasquez is going to model based on the instructions. So wherever you're at, make sure that you're sitting and that you're standing up straight and that both your feet are planted on the ground. And if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. And if you don't, you can just lower your gaze and find something to focus on. And then you take a big, deep breath in through your nose and you exhale through your mouth. Take another deep breath in. And as you exhale, allow your body to relax. And keep relaxing. Drop your shoulders. Relax your eyebrows. Relax your jaw. And take a deep breath. And take another deep breath. And now you're feeling your body relaxing more. And as you're noticing this, I'd like you to think of a place that brings you peace, a place that brings you relaxation, a place that makes you feel good. It can be a beach, it can be a forest, it can be a safe place in your home. But just really think about that image and see yourself there. And take a deep breath. And as you're in this place, You take a look around, and all of a sudden, you see a box show up in front of you. What's the box made of? Is it glass? Is it steel? Cardboard? What's it made of? And take a deep breath. And now that you've decided what your box is made of, you walk towards it. And the closer you get, the smaller the box gets. And you grab it, and you take a seat. And as you're sitting there with the box, you open it. And it's empty. But what's going to go in there is all the worries that are going on in your mind right now. All the bills you have to pay, all the errands you have to run, that conflict that came up with somebody you know. All of those things that don't need to be here right now. And I want you to place them in that box. As you're putting all of those things in that box, take a deep breath. And once you have everything that you need to put in that box, go ahead and close it. And you can begin to stand up. And what's going to happen is that you have that box now. And we're going to start to come back, and you're going to bring your box with you. But you don't have to open it right away. Allow yourself to be present. And leave the box to the side. Take a deep breath. Take another deep breath. And as you're exhaling, start wiggling your toes, your hands, your legs. And take another deep breath. And keep moving your body. And when you're ready, you can join us and you can open your eyes.
You definitely have the gift, I would say, for doing meditation, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think that a lot of individuals have that ability, but this guided meditation is definitely something that I invite those who are checking this information out to maybe just go to it, and we might end up doing a few just guided meditation videos independently, so that people who maybe are not able to yet or are not ready to seek therapeutic support, or who have tried and maybe their health insurance or their service provider hasn't approved it or hasn't found the right person, might be able to do this type of meditation um, at home, at work, right, in a safe space. Because I think that doing this multiple times a day helps with the stress. I'm sure you have one that helps a lot in preparation for bedtime. And this is not something that is just for adults, but that youth who are suffering in silence as well can benefit from, right? So it is essential that we use healthy tools to cope with our challenges or traumatic experiences, that of our adults who migrated, because we're also not assuming that everybody who's getting this information is an immigrant or a refugee, but maybe again you're a child of refugees or immigrants, and it is essential that you understand some of the unique challenges that maybe your family has gone through. Because, Jessica, you and I know that a lot of the times, if we are children of migrants or refugees, they give you a clean version of why they migrated, how the process was, and to a certain degree, why they're still in this country. And so sometimes we minimize their traumatic experiences because we just simply don't know. And so I think it's important to invite individuals to come back and check out again more of the information that we're going to be putting out there to the community. Again, we're going to start with 10 unique episodes that relate to migration for the Latinx community. Other communities absolutely can benefit from this. And for those individuals who are maybe thinking of becoming therapists, social workers, so on and so forth, hopefully you will also be able to understand better the population that you are or will be working with. So, Jessica, you are a therapist at Humanidad Therapy and Education Services. And again, I thank you for accepting this invitation. And you're going to do a couple of the episodes with us. In the last episode, episode 10, we're going to invite all of the other individuals who are going to be part of this series. And we're just going to throw you some questions so that you can help us again with coping mechanisms, healthy ways of healing. But we'll be hearing from multiple individuals during that episode. Is there any last in the last couple of minutes that we have here, is there any last recommendations that you may have for people?
I have a question for you. How did you feel after the meditation?
Much more calm, I would say.
Mhm.
Right. And as you suggested, if I'm heading into a meeting, a difficult meeting, this is the type of meditation that maybe I would suggest for somebody who is a student and is going to go to class. And maybe it's a class that you're not too comfortable in, or you may not know enough about. For a professional, if you have a supervisor, a boss who may not be the most supportive individual, I would feel comfortable and more grounded to be able to walk into those situations. So I suggest that people, again, do this if needed multiple times a day so that you can learn the benefits of that deep breathing and using your imagination to be able to put some of those worries aside. So thank you for giving us an example of that. And again, I invite people to come back because we're going to be creating more of those, just separated from this, so that people can just go to it on a daily basis or multiple times a day.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think my last thoughts are really, right? We're in this together. You're not alone. There really are genuine people that can show up for you. You just have to give yourself an opportunity to ask for help because the help's there. It's you versus you.
Mhm.
And we can be here together. We can heal together. Thank you.
Definitely. The help can help, right? And only the community can heal the problems of the community. So we are one at the end of the day in Lakesh, right? If I love myself, I will love you. If I dislike myself, I will try to destroy you and by default, destroy myself, right? So
Hmm.
I want to thank you, Jessica, for taking the time, and I look forward to our next conversation. And you and I will talk more about this short or long meditation techniques that we can teach people over time. Thank you. This is Chisme is Live, episode 1. Come back for episode 2. Again, this is a wonderful opportunity for healing. Take care of yourselves. Thank you, Jessica.